Hello and welcome to Blue Ventures AI-generated training video. In this video, we discuss the process of data validation in each of the 4 validation sheets. All data that flows through the fisheries data system is validated in Smartsheet. Data is sent for validation under 3 scenarios. 1. New names or other information are manually added in Kobo Collect. 2. A numeric value such as length, weight, or price falls beyond established thresholds. Or 3 names in the database do not have a corresponding match in a reference file. Once data is validated, both the master datasets in the database and the reference tables are updated. Drop-down lists in Kobo Collect surveys are then updated using the new names automatically added to the reference files. Data validation is a very important part of the data system and prevents data problems and inconsistencies in the future. Ultimately, this process will make analyses and visualizations quicker and more efficient. Data triggered for validation is sent to one of 4 tables: names and gears, value warnings, species, or other. Each validation table will require either selecting the correct field value from a drop-down list or entering correct values manually. The process will be appended for future data validation needs. Weekly email messages are sent out with information and links on how to complete the data validation. Additional notifications from Smartsheet may be sent via email to follow up with incomplete data validation selections. The first step is to provide a point of contact and email address for those responsible for data validation. Those individuals will receive weekly emails that contain a message with the number of pending rows of validation and links to each validation table in Dynamic View. We recommend that partners complete validation in Smartsheet Dynamic View. For this, you will need to have a Smartsheet account. First, click on the Dynamic View link in the email. A new internet browser window will open with a table-like setup for all entries. Here you can easily scroll through all the entries that need validation. Click on a row to begin validation. A Details panel will appear on the right. Review the context fields and populate the validation fields. We recommend sorting the validation table so you are viewing similar names and species together. Leave a comment if there is something that needs our attention. Blue Ventures staff will review comments and respond. Click the blue Save button to save your selection. Once validated, that row will disappear from your dynamic view. Click on the next row and repeat steps to complete validation for all entries. Now let's examine how to complete data validation in each table. You'll find that every table contains partner, admin 3 landed, and data collector to provide context for the data that needs to be validated. Within the Names and Gears table, the Kobo field tells partners which type of data needs to be validated, and the new data or value that was entered for that corresponding field. This could include the names of fishers, buyers, data collectors, fishing grounds, landing sites, and gears. The gender is listed if the Kobo field is fisher or buyer. Ref match 1, 2, and 3 are closely matching names that already exist in the database. If these fields are blank, no existing names match the name in the new data column. You can also find the submission ID for each entry, depending on whether it came from the landings, profiling, community, or household survey. Partners must then select a validation option based on the new data and provided context. This is only visible in the Details panel. You have the option to select a field with the correct data. This could be the new data or a name that already exists from fields Ref Match 1, Ref Match 2, or Ref Match 3. You also have the option to enter another value by selecting Other, or remove the row because data cannot be validated. If Other is selected from the validation options, please enter the preferred name in the Other field. Entries in the table will disappear once data is validated. Partners must complete an extra step for gear names. If validating a gear, partners must also select the associated gear type from a predefined list before validation is complete. The field Gear Species Group will appear if the Kobo field is a gear. This informs partners which species group the gear applies to. For example, to complete data validation of a new buyer name, I must select a RAW. Here the new buyer's name is Roy Newby. However, we know that name already exists in the reference file because of the information provided in the Ref Match 1. If it is indeed the same person, select Ref Match 1 as your validation option. If this is a different Roy Newby, We recommend selecting Other and writing a unique name for this individual that includes a nickname or middle name, such as Roy Charles Newby, and click Save to complete the data validation. It is possible that a new name does not exist yet in the reference files, in which case ref match 1, 2, and 3 will be blank or empty. If the new data is correct and accurate, select New Data under the validation options and save. If you wish to change the spelling, select Other and write the correct name under Other. Remember, there is a second step for completing gears. After selecting the validation option, you must also select the gear type. Next is the Value Warnings table, which functions differently than the other tables. Here, partners will determine if weight, length, and price warnings are correct by selecting Y. If yes, the values are correct, and if no, the values are wrong or remove, if the rows cannot be corrected and/or validated. Within the table, you will find the partner, admin 3 landed, data collector, fisher name, date landed, and the local name of the species for which this value warning applies to. Then there are several columns that provide context regarding the type of warning related to length, price, or weight. The warning calc columns describe the unit value of the warning, based on the numerator and denominator columns. This could be the weight per individual, price per kilogram, length per individual, or width per individual. The numerator describes the value of the warning and the corresponding units. The denominator includes the value of the count or weight. For example, I would read the value warning of this first row as a length warning of 150 centimeters for one crab of the species Scylla serrata. That length is too large and not correct, so we would select N or No under correct. If correct equals N, we must also provide the correct numerator, unit, or denominator. After talking with the data collector, we determined that millimeters was being used instead of centimeters, so we update the correct numerator to 15 centimeters. Another warning may be regarding price. In this validation row, we have a price warning of 5,000 Indonesian rupiah for 2 kilograms of the big blue octopus, Octopus cyanea. That is an extremely high price for octopus and not correct. Therefore, we would select N under correct and update the correct numerator to the actual price. After talking with the data collector, it was determined the 2 kilograms sold for 10,000. Remember to update the correct columns if N is selected under correct. The species table utilizes the same data validation process as the names and gear table. Partners will be able to see the data origin of these new local names and whether it comes from the landings monitoring or profiling survey. The associated Admin 1, Admin 2, and Admin 3 landed are also listed for each entry. The associated fisher name is also listed in addition to the data collector's name. Partners can find the new species photo that was taken in the field during collection and the new data or value that was entered as a new local name in Kobo. Similar to the names and gears table, as you scroll over, you'll also see ref match 1, 2, and 3, which shows a similar or matching name that already exists in the database. If blank, no existing names match the name in the new data column. If any additional information, such as English common name, family, or scientific species was added during data collection, it would be included here in the table under the corresponding column, along with the submission ID. To complete data validation for species, partners must select a validation option based on the new data and provided context. This is only visible in the Details panel. Here you have the option to select a column with the correct data. This could be the new data or a name that already exists from RefMatch 1, RefMatch 2, or RefMatch 3. You also have the option to enter another value by selecting Other or remove the row because the data cannot be validated. If Other is selected from the validation options, please enter the preferred local name of the species in the Other field. If Other or New Data is selected as the validation options, we ask partners to complete the first round of species identification, using the associated photo to complete the scientific species new field. If scientific species is unknown, we ask partners to include the genus or family of the local name. Once completed, click the blue Save button to save your validation, and that row will disappear from the validation table. For example, to validate a new species, I would first start by sorting the table by new data, so I'm able to see similar new species and compare photos easier. By examining the photo first, I am able to distinguish whether this species is a new local name or if it already exists in the reference files listed as ref match 1, 2, or 3. You will see the ref match in the species table includes both the local name and scientific species, separated by an underscore. We include both the local name and scientific name in the ref match columns because some partners have one local name associated with multiple species. For example, the new local name Baba is associated with 2 different species in the reference files. By first examining the new species photo, we are able to determine and validate that it is indeed the species Melichthys vidua, the pink-tail triggerfish. We would then choose ref match 1 as our validation option and save. Similar to before, when we examine the photos of the new data Ahua, we find that this species is indeed Acantharus triostegus, the convict tang. This local name and scientific species already exists in the reference files, as seen in ref match 1. Thus, we would select ref match 1 as our validation option and save. Another example is the new data Simba Simba, which does not yet exist in the reference files. However, this new data is incorrect and should be spelled diff-new JHE-CHE-GEs. To complete validation, I would select Other from the validation options and input the correct local name under Other, which in this case would be Simba. After using the new photos, I would then finish data validation by completing scientific species new with the correct species, genus, or family name. Partners are required to complete the first round of species identification by supplying the new scientific species name. Then Blue Ventures will complete a second round for double verification. If the new data is correct, such as Piscata, I would simply select New Data under the validation options and include the new scientific name. After reviewing all the Piscata photos, I am able to identify this species as Sphaerina putnamae, the sawtooth barracuda, and save this validation entry. We recommend using field guides, fishbase.org, and Google Lens as helpful resources for species identification. If you have any questions regarding a species, please leave us a comment. The other data validation table is rather simple compared to the other 3 tables. Simply decide if the new data gathered from the other questions in the survey are correct, in which case select New Data from the validation option. If you'd like to change or edit the new data, select Other and type in the other response. Lastly, you may also choose to remove the new data. All validations must include an English translation in the Validated Data English column. For example, in order to validate this entry here, which is from a habitat question in the household survey, noted here as HHS, I would first select a validation option. This new data is correct, so I would choose New Data. I would type the English translation in the Validated Data English box and click Save to complete the process. Validated data will be updated in the database, and when appropriate, reference files will be updated with new names, gears, and species. Data that has not been validated will not appear in the dashboard visualizations or statistics, but will be available in the data download. If at any time you encounter any errors, have questions, or need support for completing the data validation, please leave a comment or contact the data system team.